Hello everyone, GoldenNova here, and we were right. Phantom Nightmare has made its full release, and Diabellstar is going to be the center of future hijinks involving other themes, so we've got ourselves the next lore archetype. Shame that Visas and Albaz had to bow out this season, but I'm sure it's fine. But we've got better things to do than talk about Mighty Morphin Dragon Rangers and Arc V but in space. It's time to cover a new theme built around one of my favorite little fantasy creatures, Goblin Riders. In fact, I've even got a bit of a costume change for just such an occasion. Much better. A big thanks to McSpoofyVT for the new duds. They are positively feral. Now it's time to put GoblinNova to good use. We'll gear up for our off-road expedition, see how far we can crank our literal hogs, then find some like-minded hooligans who want to join us as we drive into the distance. Oh yeah, and we'll also cover the new Diabellstar story cards as well. It's time to ride into action with Goblin Riders.
Hi, kids! Welcome to Camp Krusty! I'll see you in a few weeks. Until then, I've turned things over to my bestest buddy in the whole wide world.
Goblin Biker.
I want you to treat
Goblin Biker.
with the same respect you would give me. Now here's
Goblin Biker. Today's episode is brought to you by my lovely patrons, as well as the wonderful people over at Dragon Shield. Get the sleeves as strong as dragon scales and save 5% on your order by using coupon code GoldenNova at checkout. So, what's the deal with Goblin Riders? Well, they're a series of level 3 monsters of various types and attributes who all ride giant tamed animals into battle, and come with a big focus on Xyz summoning. Many of their effects help you swarm the field, and each main deck monster has some variant of an effect that can special summon them, provided you detach a material from any Xyz monster on the board. So they work pretty well with your game plan, and have great game against opposing Xyz strategies. Oh hey Pearly, didn't see you there. And if you thought we were just going to be breaking out the old rank 3 staples, then think again, because the theme also comes with a variety of ways to modulate levels, meaning we have a huge roster to choose from, giving us all the tools we need to run over the competition. Let's get started with those main deck monsters. Goblin Rider Boone, the Mach Speed, is a Wind Warrior monster with 1300 attack and 0 defense, and during the main phase, if this card is in your hand or grave as a quick effect, you can detach a material from a monster on the field, and if you do, special summon this card. And until the end of the next turn after this effect resolves, you can't special summon copies of this card. This means you'll have to be careful about when you deploy this, but that's the price Boone pays for being probably the best out of the squad when it comes to their revival effect. It doesn't auto-banish itself, so you aren't punished if you don't Xyz summon with it soon enough, and at quick speed, it can sneak in to do some extra damage, or give you a surprise blocker. It's also interesting to see what I think is the game's first instance of a hard once per every other turn restriction, which is of course distinct from Mirror Jade's soft once per every other turn restriction. Please keep up. Goblin Rider Clutter the Noisy is a Fire Beast Warrior monster with 1500 attack and 0 defense, and if this card is normal or special summoned, you can target a goblin monster in your grave, accept a copy of this card, and special summon it. During your opponent's main phase, if this card is in your grave as a quick effect, you can detach a material from a monster on the field, and if you do, special summon this card, but banish it when it leaves the field. Nice to see we have a one card Xyz summon, and even better that it works on special summon as well. That way we can send out Clutter and a friend during our opponent's turn. But that's where things get a little tricky. Since the Noisy we summon will banish itself when it leaves the field, and since you can't Xyz on your opponent's turn, at least not without some help, it is pretty risky. That being said, it could still be worth it against the right matchup, because while you can't Xyz summon on your opponent's main phase, they certainly can, and snatching away some material from their precious monsters can be a huge game changer. Clutter is getting into other players' businesses so much they should change their title to Clutter the Nosy. Goblin Rider Doug the Assaulter is an Earth Warrior monster with 1600 attack and 0 defense, and if this card is in your hand, you can detach a material from a monster on the field, and if you do, special summon this card. If this card is normal or special summoned, you can add a Goblin Rider spell or trap card from your deck to your hand. Being a Stratos for the theme spell and trap cards is a huge help because all of our on-theme options are ridiculously powerful, and even makes for the best summon target off of Clutter, since Doug isn't able to revive itself from grave. This means you're getting value on both yours and your opponent's turn, which may seem a little greedy, but don't worry, I'm giving you full permission to pig out. Goblin Rider Mionda, the Cold-Blooded, is a Water Fiend monster with 1300 attack and 0 defense, and if this card is normal or special summoned, you can special summon a Goblin monster from your hand, except a copy of this card. If this card is in your grave, you can detach a material from a monster on the field to special summon this card, but banish it when it leaves the field. So one of the big weaknesses the deck has is in the early game where there won't be any Xyz monsters to pull material from. So having a monster that turbos out a pair to help make our first one is going to be invaluable, and still has uses as the game goes on, because it's a repeatable monster that we can get from our grave that effectively gets monsters in our hand onto the field without committing to our normal summon. And as long as we tuck this under an Xyz monster as soon as it hits the field, we'll have access to it over and over again, so you won't have to worry about running out of plays when this mouse is in the house. Alright, that covers the main crew, but what about those exciting Xyz monsters? Goblin Rider Big Head Gabonga is a rank 3 light beast warrior monster with 2100 attack and 0 defense, requiring any 2 level 3 monsters as material. If this card is Xyz summoned, you can add a Goblin monster from your deck to your hand, and if any number of material are detached from a monster on the field, you can target one other face-up monster on the field and attach it to this card as material. And during the end phase, you can attach a Goblin monster from your deck to this card as material. This is fantastic. While it doesn't have its own effect that detaches material, that's just fine, because we want to save that for our riders to use as fuel. It even keeps the tank full by stealing another monster on the field, which can include your opponents. And with our ability to summon Goblin Riders on basically every turn, your opponent's gonna have to keep an eye out. And even if it runs out of material, this mandrill is fuel efficient, attaching a Goblin monster from your deck during the end phase. But this is where things get a little funky. See, Emony has informed me that the way Goblin is worded in the original Japanese for these cards doesn't entirely line up with the broader usage of it across the more general Goblin card pool. Think your Goblin attack forces and Goblin zombies. But then that begs the question why it works with Goblins and not Goblin Riders specifically. More information is likely to come out in the following weeks, but for now, I'm pinning my hopes on Gabonga being a bridge that connects all of Goblin kind into one glorious Goblin community, where the spoils of tinkering and junk scrounging can be had by all. A big-brained move for an appropriately big-headed Goblin.
Hi there, Emony here. So I was wrong about this. I thought that because Goblin Biker is spelt using kanji, and goblins have historically been spelled using katakana, they might not be compatible. However, Konami decided that the furigana of Goblin in Goblin Biker was going to inform how the archetype worked, so it is indeed compatible with all other goblins. Yay! And I will take the L on this one.
Goblin's Crazy Beast is a rank 6 Dark Fiend monster with 2700 attack and 0 defense, requiring 2 or more level 6 monsters as material. I know that seems impossible to pull off right now, but just go with it, it's actually pretty easy to summon. Once per turn, as a quick effect, you can target a spell or trap card on the field, detach 2 material from any amount of monsters on the field, and if you do, attach that spell or trap card to this card as material. If any number of monsters you control would be destroyed by a card effect, you can detach a material from this card instead. And if this card is in your grave, you can special summon this card, then attach a Goblin monster from your grave to it as material. But you can only use that last effect once per duel. That's right, the deck made to fight against Pearly now has a monster with a Noir-style effect. Thankfully, it only hits spells and traps, so it's not too out of hand, but it also lacks a once per turn restriction, so you can expect to get a lot of mileage out of this monster. Not to mention, it comes with a kind of Dingirsu style effect that keeps your monsters safe from any kind of effect destruction. You'll love to see it. And to top it all off, while it's not repeatable, having that once per duel revival effect means it can not only come back from a massive beating, you can use it as link material for something like SP Little Knight with impunity, getting Beast right back into the fray. It's a spectacular boss monster to help anchor your board against a number of threats, and even gives you a member of another archetype while they're at it. Come to think of it, that monster has a goblin on it too. Alright, that's all our monsters, now it's time for the spells and traps. Grand Arrival of the Goblin Riders is a normal spell card that adds a goblin monster from your deck to your hand. Then you can detach a material from a monster on the field, and if you do, special summon a level 4 or lower goblin monster from your hand. You can also banish this card from your grave to detach a material from a monster on the field, then you can add a goblin from your grave to your hand. This is about as solid of a starter as you can get. It fetches you any goblin, no questions asked, and if there are any spare Xyz material lying around, it turns it into a special summon. And it gets you back a goblin from your grave if there are even more material to snack on. You can even do this all in the same turn, so no need to wait an arbitrary period of time, you can get your value right now. Talk about making an entrance. This is an arrival that would make even Diabellstar halt. No, and they're still going. Oh well, nice try. Pack it up, folks. We'll give it another try next time. Grand Meeting of the Goblin Riders is a continuous spell card that gives all goblin monsters you control a 300 attack boost for each goblin monster you control. During your main phase, you can normal summon a goblin monster in addition to your normal summoner set, and you can also target 2 goblin monsters you control that have a level, then activate one of these effects. Either have the level of one of those monsters become the level of the other, or the level of both monsters become their combined original level. And this is how you get into our rank 6. Target 2 level 3 goblins, choose the mode that gives them each their combined level, and voila! But because they're all level 3, why do we also have the level matching effect? Well, that's another point towards this working with all goblins, because a vast majority of those monsters are level 4. We can even search level 4 and unders with Grand Arrival. So if it holds true, we not only have access to rank 3s and 6s, but potentially 4s, 7s, and 8s. And all this level fixing is on top of an extra normal summon, crucial for deploying our monsters early, and comes with a ridiculous attack buff. If it only gave each goblin 300 attack, then that would be a respectable boost. But 300 for each goblin per goblin? And you could potentially have multiple of this card on the board? That's not just goblin squared, that's goblin cubed. And as we all know, goblin times goblin times goblin is infinite goblins. And you can trust me on that one, because that's goblin math. Goblin Rider Stampede is a continuous trap card, and during the main phase, you can, immediately after this effect resolves, Xyz summon using only goblin monsters you control as material. And if you control a goblin Xyz monster, you can target an effect monster on the field. Detach a material from a monster on the field, and if you do, negate the targeted monster's effects until the end of this turn. And you can only use one effect of this card per turn, and only once per turn. So thankfully, for the sake of balance at least, you can't just make a goblin Xyz, then immediately negate a monster. But that doesn't take away from how powerful this card is, not one bit. Using Clutter's effect on your opponent's turn is now a much safer prospect, because now you can Xyz summon during their turn, and having a negate on hand is super useful on turns you don't need that effect. Heck, you could even do that on your own turn in case one of your goblins is about to get hit by some targeted interaction or negation. You can just scoop them under an Xyz monster, and now you no longer have to worry. Also, I love that you can actually make any Xyz monster with this, it's just that the material needs to be goblin monsters, meaning any off-theme option is open to you as long as you have the right levels. It certainly got my seal of approval. Or should I say my stampede of approval. Okay, goblin nonsense is done, but now we've got to cover the new Diabellstar story cards. Though in this case, it's more like new Snake Eye cards. Snake Eye Populace is a level 1 Fire Pyro monster with 700 attack and 200 defense, and if this card is added to your hand except by drawing it, you can special summon it. If this card is normal or special summoned, you can add a Snake Eye spell or trap card from your deck to your hand. And if this card is sent to the graveyard, you can target a fire monster in your grave and place it face up in its owner's spell and trap zone as a continuous spell card. Ooh, this card's a doozy. Not only can Snake Eye Ash add this from your deck to your hand to get the effect started, you can also run the new Pyro Search spell, Bonfire, in a few months in the TCG. That way, you can do it without even committing to a summon, all while getting you a free Snake Eye spell or trap card. And if recent tournament trends are any indication, one card in particular, Original Sinful Spoil Snake Eye, is gonna be a great target. And if you're playing the theme pure, getting another way to put your monsters into the back row is... well, we already have 100 ways to do that, so what's one more? I think it's a given at this point that once it comes out, Populace is gonna be pretty popular. Snake Eye Dramatic Chase is a quick play spell card that places a Diabellstar monster from your hand, deck, or grave face up in its owner's spell and trap zone as a continuous spell card. And during the end phase, you can banish this card from your grave, then target a monster card treated as a continuous spell you control and special summon it. This reads kind of like an alternate version of Wanted, Hunter of Sinful Spoils. That card adds Diabellstar to the hand, but you still have to pay for their cost of summoning. Dramatic Chase will handle that all on its own, just at a bit of a delay. This works pretty well for decks that don't have the fodder on hand to pay for the summon, but still want to have a card like Silvera to interact with the opponent. But at that point, why bother? Most decks that use Diabellstar find a way to use that cost to their advantage, so if you don't need that, I'm sure you have better options. It's not so bad for a more pure Snake Eye deck because they can get the Diabellstar on field a lot quicker while still having the raw material to feed the spellcaster's effects, but for everyone else, well, you won't have to worry about going after this chase rare. Alright, that's all the Goblin Rider cards. Now it's time for a little combo you may want to know when playing the deck, and all it takes is a single card. Tour Guide of the Underworld, because we just so happen to have a level 3 Fiend in the roster. So this not only makes a rank 3, but even sets up our engine. Normal summon the guide, and use their effect to summon Meonda from deck. Overlay them for Big Head Gavanga, using its effect to search your Doug the Assaulter. Use Doug's in-hand effect to special summon itself, detaching that Meonda. And now you get a Goblin Rider Speller Trap card off of its summon effect. Grand Arrival is the perfect pick here, because with one more material left, you can use it to search Clutter the Noisy, then special summon it by detaching the Tour Guide from under Gavanga. Use its effect to summon out the Meonda in Grave. And now you have 3 level 3 monsters to work with. If your opponent has an empty board and you can attack, making a Shura King out of those 3 presents lethal damage, but if you're going first, consider using 2 of them, preferably Clutter and Meonda, to make Xyz Armor Torpedo. This gets you a draw right off the bat to help you dig for extension or interruption, then you can rank it up immediately into Xyz Armor Fortress, using its effect to search out full armored Xyz. Set that trap card, then make full armor Dark Knight Lancer on top of Fortress, because now it no longer has material. Move to the end phase, attach a Goblin from your deck to Gavanga as material, then pass the turn over to your opponent. Then, during your opponent's turn, you can revive your Goblins using their effect, at which point you can quick Xyz summon by using that full armored Xyz, making whatever rank 3 you want. Heck, if you ended up summoning 2 Goblins by way of Clutter, you could use the Doug that you still have on board to make that a Shura King to give you a monster negate. From there, at any point, you can banish the full armored Xyz from Grave to attach that Xyz Armor Torpedo to Lancer, which not only applies its effect to keep Lancer from being destroyed by card effects, but also triggers Lancer's effect to attach one of your opponent's monsters to it as material. Not to mention that Lancer's stats by this point are going to be gigantic! So, off a single card, you've got Gabonga with its Quick Absorb online, a full armored Lancer ready to tear into your opponent with its own Absorb effect, another Xyz of your choice, and you still have a full grip of cards left for extension and protection. So, with that little tidbit out of the way, what do we do with Goblin Riders? Well, if you're familiar with other 3-axis strategies, the idea shouldn't be too far off. We're a monster combo deck looking to leverage the extra deck for powerful extenders, enablers, and game enders. Our deck is in a pretty good place when it comes to facilitating all this. Now we just need some non-engine that helps to insulate us while we do what we do best. Go full Goblin mode! So what can we play to help them out? Well, since we are a level 3 centric deck, I wouldn't be doing my job very well if I didn't bring up Ken the Warrior Dragon and Gen the Diamond Tiger. These newly released TCG exclusives are causing quite the stir, and for good reason. Because you can get an extra normal summon from Meeting, they're pretty easy to slot into your usual lines of play. And we can search them with Rhoda, which we were probably already playing to search out Doug or Boone. We'll want to get Gen so we can give our opponent Ken, this way we can dig deeper into our deck for our power cards. And the bonus is, since our opponent will have a monster, Gabonga's effect to scoop up a monster will be live, even on turn 1. Oh, and again, they are level 3, so we can use them for our usual game plan. It's pretty great. What about those Goblin synergies? Scrap Goblin is a searchable tuner, and with access to our level modulation, can make us a lot of slick synchro monsters, though far too numerous to count here. Goblin Zombie is a problem just waiting to happen, what with its non-once per turn searching that pairs very well with the Link summoning mechanic. Something we can also make good use of thanks to all this material we're generating. There are a number of Goblin Attack Force retrains, but none really have the utility I'd like to see outside of the new Goblin Paratrooper Squad, giving us a way to negate our opponent's monster effects. We can summon it out of the hand with Meonda or Grand Arrival, but we can also summon it with another Goblin that's much more thematic, Goblinberg. This also really helps us turbo out monsters and, in a pinch, can summon the Paratroopers to keep a monster locked down. Then, once that opponent's monster is dealt with, we can just use it as material. Since we are so prolific in our rank 3 capabilities, what are some other Xyz monsters we can make good use of? Well, if any of our little Goblinos fall head over heels into the banished zone, Levier is there to get them right back. Ghost Trick Alucard can help us deal with set cards, and can even lead us into the Ghost Trick package that lands us a Utopic Draco Future, which is another stellar Xyz monster we can make use of. Next are the rank 6s. Beatrice has always been a fantastic option for setting up your grave, and right behind it is Constellar Ptolemy M7 for removal or recovery. Though if it's removal you want, Dampier Vampire Sheridan is where it's at. Dragonlark Peyrin is great for revival, and Evolzar Lars gives you some handy negation. Transcendosaurus Drillignathus is a funny inclusion, as we can strip it of material fairly easily to get that double damage going. Wolo is another form of quick graveyard hate, and Virtual World Phoenix Fonfon can do that and hit a card on board at the same time, though a bit slower. As for rank 7s, the pool is pretty shallow. We have the old standbys of Big Eye to steal a monster, and Dracosac to make us free material for summons. And to be fair, both actually help us make Little Knight. We just link whatever we stole with Big Eye to make it, and the 2 tokens off of Dracosac can make IP Masquerena, which is a quick Little Knight. How about some other themes we can splash in? Currently, 2 come to mind, and you can even play both of them if you're feeling daring enough. First is Punk. It has a variety of level 3 monsters we can easily grab with Emergency Teleport. They get us value, and also open up the Synchro pool. Hard to say no to powerful game enders like Amazing Dragon and Psychic End Punisher. Our other option is Gold Pride, allowing us to fold any 2 level 3s into Chariot Carry, which gives us better luck next time, which then opens up the entire theme. Captain Carry and Leon are also both level 3s, so they can also help enable our strategy. Just be careful with Leon's effect, as it does lock your extra deck when used. Personally, I look forward to playing a Gold Pride Punk Goblin Rider deck sometime in the near future. That's exactly the kind of energy I want to bring to the dueling table. As for a silly tech pick, hit your opponent with that number 30 Acid Golem of Destruction lock. Play Creature Swap to get it onto your opponent's field, then rob it of all its material with your goblins. Now, your opponent can't special summon, and will slowly melt away as Golem eats away at their life points. Alright, that's all the mechanical info I have on Goblin Riders, but how does it stack up against the Nova scale? Novelty. Well, I hate to say it, but we've kind of been here before. The level 3 shell is something we're all more than familiar with, and level modulation is pretty standard. The fact that these 2 have come together is pretty neat, and does allow the toolbox more flexibility than it normally has had in the past. But despite how much I love the deck, I have to give it a 2 in novelty. Objectivity. I am tentatively worried about the power level of these cards. Once things get going, it is a tidal wave of value, ending on some of the game's best monsters, giving you a wide variety of protection, interaction, and win conditions to work with. And I've seen some truly heinous stuff done in the name of Goblin Zombie. Early assessments are tough because it's hard to see just how powerful this will be in practice, but currently I'm giving Goblin Riders a 4 in objectivity. Versatility. Being a rank 3 deck means we have a lot of friends. Because our on-theme Xyz monsters are completely generic, any deck with level 3s can use Big Head Gabonga to bridge into Goblin Riders, and because of Grand Arrival, you can make a lot of extension happen very quickly. And while Gabonga may not see general play in other decks, I could see the beast being teched in as a rank 6 option to deal with back row and provide protection, so I'm giving Goblin Riders a 4 in versatility. Awesomeness. Goblin, 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 goblin. That means that Goblin Riders are walking away with a 15 on the Nova scale. Okay, enough of that namby-pamby game stuff. What about the lore? I regret to inform you that there is not a lot of lore here. Populus is the 4th member of the Snake Eye siblings I spoke about in that video's lore section, who was turned into a Quaking Aspen, or as it's known by its scientific name, Populus Tremula. As for its origins, we did see Diabellstar ripping open the main eye of Flamberge's dragon, so if that monster represents Sylvanus, the Grass Snake King, Populus might have been trapped inside, who now travels with Diabellstar. Once she gets back to town after her escapades, the Goblin Riders spot Diabellstar, recognizing that sour face from the wanted posters, and launch their attack. At some point, one of them manages to steal away Populus, sending Diabellstar into a murderous rampage trying to get their new pet back. Populus might also have been used to power up Gabonga potentially. Look at the flames coming out of the rider's head. Either they've got Populus, a different Snake Eye gem, or potentially another sinful spoil that Diabellstar will be able to add to their collection. I tried to do some investigating to see if the Goblin Riders were based on any kind of myth or legend, something I posited would be the case since the first adversary was based on the Grass Snake legend, but we haven't gotten many leads here. It just seems like they wanted to put in a bunch of goblins, and I mean, more power to them, but I miss the Albaz lore. Though, I will say, this isn't entirely a wash. Between two sets and some very informative concept art, we've gotten some strong characterization not just for Diabellstar, but the world they live in. It's a setting where industrial cityscapes are within travel distance of ancient haunted ruins. There's some kind of central authority here doling out bounties on people searching for ancient artifacts, and roving gangs of opportunists looking to cash in on said bounty. It may not be the epic lore with all kinds of references and story threads that I prefer, but I'd be lying if I said I wasn't already charmed. But enough about that from me. Right now, I want to see what you all have to say. Do you like the change in pace? What adventures do you think Diabellstar will go on next? How will the Goblin Riders factor into the story moving forward? What importance do the sinful spoils have? And most importantly, will Diabellstar ever get a good day off? Let me know down in the comments, and if you haven't already, please make sure to like the video, subscribe so you don't miss an episode, and share this video with somebody you know who loves Yu-Gi-Oh! It really does a lot to help me out. Today's episode is brought to you in part by Dragon Shield. Get the sleeves as strong as dragon scales that also come with their own lore while saving 5% on your order. Just make sure to use code GoldenNova at checkout. Today's episode is also brought to you by my lovely patrons, including the illustrious Quasar Commanders Frankie and Marluxia as a Girl, Nebula Navigators 3rd Dynasty, Ada Basilisk, Adam Zajdel, Andrew Newman, Kane Senpai, Chibi Gohan, Christopher Fuss, Clockswork, Danny Bound, Dark Dragon X830, Eric, Aaron the Worldbreaker, Garland Chaos, Green Knight, Great Big Pillock, Hair Bear, Harry the Ominous Benefactor, Hydrocraft 135, Iron Zero, Iskander 711, Mana Charge, Marion James E. Picata, Mega Combi, Millennia Asta, Molly Renata, Muzuki Clark, Nathan Vig, Natiel Lee Alexander, Orozco 09096, Panther J, Rebel King Lucifer, RJ the Jank Monarch, Sammy Haim, Sir Knight JCB, Skybuster Leo, The Wizard Moose, URTV 667 and Xander Wolfensberger, Cosmic Crusaders Alpha Sly, Almento 5010, A Random Pup, Ariel Kersey, Beluga Master, Blue Gem, Borger with the Shotgun, Chaz Ghost, Corbinisms, Drachenwald, Eki Bullock, Emony, Eva Padilla, Hike Boyagian, Howling Zangetsu, Herbal D, Inblink, Jester Design, Kale the Dragon, Carp, Kevon Public, King Scarlet Yu-Gi-Oh!, Lord Whoop-De-Doo, Manga Pages, Matt Simmons, Michael Shimabukuro, Mustafa Aiden, Nitromo, Psycho Reaper Gaming, Shizuki Nijimura, Sophie, apparently, Stephen Williamson, Taylor Seymour, The Legendary Raven, Tucker Ordorn, Venusian Teapot, and Zeldreka, as well as the wonderful Starlight Explorers you see on screen now. If you'd like to help me in my journey in covering all of Yu-Gi-Oh's archetypes, get my videos early, be a part of these credits, and participate in monthly custom card reviews, I'd be super grateful if you'd consider checking out my Patreon in the description or joining as a YouTube member.